Hello codegurus, welcome back. So as a part of this video tutorial, we will see how to create a responsive toolbar using our Quasar framework. So before we go ahead and start developing our application, let's go to the initial prototype design. So over here, as a part of this video tutorial, we will be creating this toolbar. So if you see over here, as a part of our slicing, in our introduction video tutorial, we said that this is going to be one of the row in the entire page layout. So we will start with this initial row. Now let's proceed to our IDE. So before we proceed further and start modifying the code, the first and foremost I want to do is I want to revert the changes which we have done in my previous video tutorial. So let's go to the command prompt and just simply say git status. So if you see, we have modified the default layout as well as the default index file in our previous video tutorial. So I just wanted to revert them back so that we are happy to go ahead and do the modifications from the default layout. So here all I have to do is, in order to revert my changes, since I have not committed those changes, I can just go ahead and say git checkout dot, and it will go ahead and undo all those changes inside our layout as well as on the page which we have done. Now let's proceed to the IDE. So now as per the design, as I said earlier, we needed a toolbar. So we already have a toolbar in our existing application. So that's perfectly fine. But however, if you see our design, there is a logo on the top left, right? So let's try to, first of all, get rid of, if you see our existing application in the browser, it's not as we expect. So there is a drawer, but we don't have a drawer in our actual website design, right? So let's try to clean up this web page. So the first and foremost is the left side menu bar, which you can see, is nothing but this is the drawer. So let's go ahead and for time being, I'll just cut this code and paste it in a text file so that we can go ahead and reuse that code in a couple of minutes. So I've just pasted that code over here so that we can reutilize that code. So why we need to reutilize that code, I'll cover that thing in a couple of minutes. So the first and foremost, again, similarly, we don't need the button, which is on the left side. So if you see over here, go back to the browser. Now that the drawer is gone, your layout has expanded. That's perfectly fine. Now the next important thing which we need to do over here is we need to get rid of this menu bar over here. Again, I won't delete the code. I'll just cut the code from there and paste it into our temporary file, because we will be utilizing both those codes in a couple of minutes. Now, if you go ahead and look at the web application, so it's more or less like how it is, which we are expecting. So again, we need to get rid of this guy, and we need to even get rid of this guy and change the title bar or toolbar color over here. So now let's go back to our IDE. All I have to do is just get rid of this condition over here, and at the same time I'll just get rid of this text over here. Now if you go to your application, so you can see everything is as we expect. Now we need to change the color. So if you see our prototype, the color is a bit different. So how do I go ahead and change it? So here, when we are designing, our client has given a requirement that this is going to be the primary color, and this is going to be your secondary color. So now, how can I go ahead and apply that color for my toolbar? So what I've done is I've already created the hexa code for that, or HTML color code for that. Or you can even do one thing, go to your Quasar website. As discussed in my previous video tutorial of Quasar Basics, I said that there is one section, under a section called as styles. There are predefined styles which are provided by your Quasar, right? So now you could see over here something called as styles and identity. Now over here you could see something called as color palette. So just go ahead and click on that. Now here you can see there are a lot of color palettes which are available out of the box from your Quasar application. So somewhat our website color is also similar to this. but I'll just go ahead and stick to the hexacode which I have created. So now how do I apply that change? There are two ways of doing it. You can go ahead and change the color over here, or if you want to apply it throughout your website. Again, if you remember in a previous video tutorial, under your CSS folder, I said that Quasar variables.sassy, these are the variables which are accessed throughout your website, correct? So now I'll just change my primary color, leave the secondary color as it is. Now, if you go back to your website, you can see the color has been modified successfully. Now, what is the next step? So the next step over here is I need to go ahead and add my logo. So here, for time being, what I've done is our logo is going to be an image. So now, just to save time, what I've done is I've copied all those static images already into your statics folder. So you can see over here, this is the logo which we are going to apply on that website. So now how do I apply an image on my toolbar, right? So now over here, your Quasar comes with a predefined view component called as image. So all your predefined view components which are provided out of the box by your Quasar is you can utilize them by using q hyphen whatever your component name. So now let's close this component, and this component takes a field called as src. So what is this folder? So what does this src takes? It takes statics slash, and you could see our logo is available inside a folder called as logo, and it is called as horizontal. So the name is incorrect over here. Let me go ahead and change that. So I'm just going to copy the file name over here. So just copy that, paste it over here, .png. Now save that. Now let's go back to your website and refresh your page. You could see that has applied the image, but not in the desired way how we needed it, right? So now what we need to do is, we don't need 100% width. By default, your Q image is applying 100% of your width. So we don't need to do that. So we need to restrict it to some value. So how can I apply that style again over here? So it's pretty simple. All you have to do is just say style and just say width is equal to, maybe let's say I'm giving it as like 170 pixel. It should be colon over here. And let's see if it is having an effect on it. So now here you can see it has successfully applied the logo image over there as required by our image prototype over here, you can see. So we achieved this successfully. Now what is the next step on our toolbar? So here you can see these are the three buttons which we need to apply on the top right side. So again, let's go back to the Quasar website and let's try to search for something called as button. So now over here, there is a button already provided, and you could see over here, there are a number of variables. There are pretty much a lot of variations which can be done with the buttons. So now if you quickly scroll through them, so this outline rounded is the button which we need for our sign up as well as our sign in. So now if you just click over here, you could see the code of that. So now this is the button exactly needed by us. So I'll just copy that, or let's go back to our code over here. So what I need to do. So here, as I said earlier, you just need to say Q button, and you need to close that button tag. So all the tags which you open should be closed. Now what is the important thing which it takes? There is something called as label. So if you don't provide label, what happens? Let's see. So here, if you go to your website, there's nothing visible over here, but you could see there is some button created, but it's not as desired how we needed it. It's okay. Let's go back to our code editor and let's provide some text over here. So here I'll just say label is equal to sign in. Now let's go back to our website and see. So here it is there, but again, not 100% like how we desired, right? So if you see in our prototype, it is a rounded button, correct? Now let's go back to the documentation again. So here, in order to see, make it as a rounded, there is a property inside your button called as rounded. Now let's go back to our IDE, try to apply that. So here I'll just simply say rounded. Let's save that and go back to our site. So now here you could see it is there. Now again, we need to apply one more property on the button called as outline. So now over here you could see it is exactly like how it is inside our prototype. Similarly, I'll just go ahead and create the other two buttons. So I'll just copy the same code over here, paste it, just to save our time. I have done that. So now over here I have created the sign up. Now I need to go ahead and even create your courses button over here. So now if you go back to your website, you could see there are three buttons created. But if you see the courses button in my prototype, it doesn't have any border, right? So all you have to do is just again go back to your Quasar website and see if you have anything without button or anything with a button without a border. Now over here you could see something called as flat, right? So now we will go back to our code and I'll just simply say flat. That's it. Now if you go ahead and look at your website, you could see there are somewhat exactly like how it is needed. But if you see over here, there is some sort of gap needed between those buttons, right? Again, how do I apply that? It's pretty simple. So here, there is a section called as styles and identity. We need some spacing, right? So all you have to do is just go to your spacing. So what I'll do is there should be a gap between your sign up and your sign in. So that means I just need to apply some sort of padding or margin just between these buttons. So here I'll just go ahead and say margin, and I just want to apply it on the right side as well as I want it to be a very small one. So how do I apply that? Go to your sign up button, just say classes is equal to q hyphen. So now what do we need? We need a margin. Where do we need? We need it on the right side and it should be a very small space. So here I'll just simply say extra small. Now if I have, since I've applied that, let's go back to our site. Now over here you could see there is a gap. If you see those buttons, there is a gap. Or if you want to give a bit more space, I'll just simply say it as SM. Now over here you could see it is pretty much decent space like how it is needed on our prototype. That's perfectly fine. So for time being, what I'll do is I'll just make it back to XS. Now similarly, I need to go ahead and apply this space on my courses button also so that everything is aligned. So here you could see there is a small space. Okay, so looks like I will be reverting it back to SM. So now if you see, so it's pretty decent space. So now over here, if you see, we somewhat got the desktop structure of that toolbar. Now if I resize it, it's not responding to the resolution. So what I need to do? So the first and foremost is I need to go ahead and hide these three buttons and show a menu button over here, right? So now how do we do that? It's pretty simple. Let's go back to your styles and identity. And again, there is something called as visibility. So let's go ahead and see visibility, what we can do. So now over here, if you can see, if this XS or SM models are present on your class, what is it going to do? So it says it's a breaking point. So now, okay, fine. What does that breaking point do? It says, so now when you apply XS style on a component, it just displays on a extra small screen, right? Similarly, if you say SM, it will display on a small screen, right? So now over here, what do we need? So if I go ahead and change my website, let's say maybe like, let's try to experiment with it. So first let's go ahead and say small. So now again, how I go ahead and apply this change, it's pretty straightforward. Go back to your component. Now that entire buttons section has to be hidden. So here all I need to say is just say it as like SM. Now if I just go ahead and say SM, So they are displayed only when they are on smaller screen. But what we need to hide them if they are on bigger screen. Sorry, if they are on smaller screen, right? How do we do that? So it's pretty simple. So now over here, first, there is a possibility you can even apply like less than or greater than. So what do you mean by less than or greater than? So you want to display a component if it is less than your certain size, right? So now let's do one thing. Extra small doesn't make sense over here. I want to display something which is less than your smaller size, or I want to hide this menu bar or this buttons over here on the right side once the screen size is less than certain SM. So now I'll just go to your class and just say less than SM. So if your screen resolution is less than SM, then only this guy should be displayed. So over here, I'll just go back to your website. Now if I reduce it, the size, you could see they are getting displayed only on the when the screen size is very small, right? So that doesn't make sense. It should not be less than, right? So this button should be shown only when your screen size is greater than small, somewhat similar to your desktop. Now if I change your website, so now this behavior is somewhat correct. Now what is the next step? I need to go ahead and show my menu bar, right? So what am I going to do over here is I'll just go create a different div tag over here. So now if you remember, I said we will be using that menu button over here in some time. So I'll just copy the menu button which we have deleted a couple of minutes while ago. So now if I go back to your website, you could see this menu button displayed. But we need to display that button only when the other buttons are hidden, right? So it's pretty much the same strategy which we are going to use. All we have to say is just simply say class is equal to less than MD. Now if you see over here, whenever your menu bar is, or whenever you're trying to resize your screen, you could see that the buttons get automatically hidden and your menu button gets popped. Your menu button pops up. Now when I click this button, I need to show your div, right? So again, let's go back to your text editor. So this entire drawer is the one which we are going to display whenever we click that button, okay? So now let's go back to our IDE. Just below your header tag, we will paste that code. So now I've pasted that code. Now let's go back to our website. You could see the drawer is back. But over here, our actual behavior is, by default, this drawer should be hidden and should be shown only when your menu button is clicked, right? So now, by default, whatever your skeleton code which we got from your Quasar CLI, it includes one more extra property called as show if above. So now if you just get rid of that property and go back to your website, so by default it will just go ahead and show, it will hide your drawer. Now if you resize, you could see that the menu button is up. Now if you click on this, then only your drawer is visible, which is what the exact behavior which we are needed inside our requirement. Now one more important thing. So what we have done. So inside your skeleton application, what they have done is they have created a field called as left drawer open. So by default, the value of that property is false. Now what are we doing is, if you see our Q menu button, so at click, we are just reverting the value of your left open from, let's say if it is false to true, and if it is true to false. That's perfectly fine. Now we are binding that property with this to your Q drawer over here. So now what we are saying, hey Q drawer, if this value is true, then only display. If this value is false, then don't display, or it's close as usual. So now over here, if you see over here, when you resize, based on your resolution, your buttons are hidden and your menu bar comes up over here. But again, as per the design, I don't need all this dock section and everything else. What I needed is a sign up button and a sign in button. So how do I go ahead and create that? It's pretty simple. So now just go back to your code. You could see this key list items. So this is where you just go ahead and modify. And so rather than what I will do is, rather than saying it like a doc section, I can just go ahead and simply say a sign up. Similarly for GitHub and on Discord chat channel, etc. So what I'll do is I will leave that menu bar substitution as an assignment. So try to do that. And what all you have to do is just get rid of everything and try to create a sign up and sign in button and courses button over here on this drawer. That's it. So I hope you have enjoyed this video tutorial. If yes, please do not forget to like, comment and share this video with your friends. And also please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click bell icon in order to get instant notifications from our channel. And we are also available on Twitter at codeguru_io and on Facebook at codeguru.io. Thank you.